Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Truth Wanted. I'm your host, Objectively Dan. This is the show where we talk to people about what they believe and why. Live every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time. Joining me this week is a very special guest. You've probably seen him before if you've been around the atheist community the past couple of years. It is the one, the only, Aron Ra. Aron Ra, welcome to Truth Wanted. How are you doing tonight?
It's all right. It's all right. Oh, squirrel. I was just looking behind you.
Oh, yeah. Nico just finally found his place up there. Hopefully he'll stay up there. Gotta love that cat, other co-host of the show. So yes, Aron Ra has been around the block in the atheist scene. I'm pretty sure if you've been an atheist for long enough, you have seen his videos somewhere. He really focuses on a lot of things. I'd say he's probably most well known for his talks about young Earth creationism. And recently he just told me he's been doing some stuff to educate himself even more, and maybe we can go into that. But I thought that I want to start this off with a story before I got into any questions about Aron, because I think this story kind of encapsulates Aron in a way that's hard to explain otherwise. So the first time I met Aron was at American Atheist 2018, and this was in Oklahoma. I think it was at Tulsa, right? We were downtown Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so I had been, Anthony Magnabosco was with me there, and he was invited to go to this kind of party that Daryl Ray was throwing. And Aron was on the way to that party too. So it's kind of cool. This was my first real big atheist event. So I was meeting a bunch of different people. You know, I was volunteering at the atheist community of Austin before that, but this is the first time meeting a bunch of people. But this party was across the street at a hotel from the convention center we were at. So Aron was walking with us. We kind of had a bunch of us all kind of together, and down the street, it was like Easter weekend. So they had like this big basketball thing going on down the street. The streets were totally crowded. Lots of kids and families and stuff. And Aron is out here on this very sunny day, all black, just looking like the Undertaker from WWE. Like, he's rocking it. Like, that's just Aron's style. And if you know Aron, and if you see him at enough events, you know that's just his thing. That's what he does. And what was funny about this moment was, as he was walking across the street with his brimmed hat and he's got the sunglasses, a bunch of police officers were walking with us at the same time across the street. Plus you have the rest of us kind of walking with him. And Aron was there with his wife too. And his wife was like all dressed up in black and stuff. And I noticed these families and everybody were starting to stare at Aron because he had these police officers around him. Aron looked like he was about to go to a rock concert and like just do something really like guest perform with Ozzy Osbourne or something. And I think people thought he was some sort of famous, rock star about to go, because people were pointing and looking at it. It was really funny. So that's Aron, I think, in a nutshell. Just a guy who just, man, doesn't care what people think. He just says what he has to say, and you got to respect him for it. So Aron, thanks again for coming onto the show. I hope you like that story, because I know that's the first time you heard it.
I do. Thank you. I don't remember that incident, strangely.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I just remember ribbing Anthony, just like kind of said, look at this guy. He's crazy. But yeah, I remember another time.
My daughter's roommate didn't know who I was, right? I mean, she'd met me, obviously, but that's it. She didn't know anything else about me. And then she happens across in her TikTok somehow. There was a video of me that got into her feed, and suddenly this girl is freaking out, asking me, "Is this your stepdad?"
That's pretty good.
This was in Cincinnati when I was arguing with a bunch of creationists outside of the event there, and I was in my warlock robes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny that ended up on her feed, and she's, "This is so weird."
Yeah, it's you got a wardrobe that strikes a memory for people. I mean, it really is unforgettable. There was another time, and I wasn't planning on telling another story, but there was a time where you were debating a guy at a church that was kind of close to Waco, Texas, actually. I remember because I was there hanging out with the Baylor Secular Student Alliance folks. And it was in this church. And so most of the people there were Christians. In fact, I think me and a couple other friends were like some of the only atheists. And you were out there and you were saying stuff that I'm pretty sure that church has never heard before. And just like, I don't know if it's like people looking around like, can he say this in a church? Like, is this even allowed? You were talking about, I think, just the methodology of science and stuff. But of course, I think you were talking about Christianity and stuff too, and just the bad parts of that, and people just were not prepared. They were not ready for you. So yeah, like I said, that's what Aron does best. He talks, you break down a lot of these arguments, especially with young earth creation stuff, but Christianity in general, like lots of religions in general. Yeah, what got you started with doing this stuff? Like, what got you really passionate about it?
Well, one of the things that bothered me was when I was talking, as soon as I got online, pretty much back around Y2K, I found myself in a lot of discussions with believers and with scientists and everything. And one of these believers was bragging about how their church congregation had all voted exactly the way their minister told them all to vote. And this was in a coordinated coalition of all these different congregations across the state, where they were all electing specific judges and senators and school board members and everything, because there were all these ministers getting on the phone with each other to tell their congregations how to vote. So they're using the church as a lobby. Now, of course, this stands against the Johnson Amendment. That the reason that churches don't have to pay taxes is because they're not allowed to lobby, which of course we know they do. Right? I mean, what's the point? I don't think the church. I would like to see churches taxed, but more than that, I'd like to see them fined. But they were arguing about this culture war that they imagined to be going on. I'm like, what culture war? It just makes no sense. So the whole game was basically what was detailed later. It hadn't come out yet at that time. The wedge strategy, where they were talking about you replace like every member of government possible with your evangelical friendly people, and then you undermine science education as the first step, so that if people can't trust science, then they'll be more ready to believe God, because God of the gaps fallacy. And then they were also undermining history and everything too, because they just had to fill. It's gaslighting. They had to completely dominate the narrative to tell everybody that the United States was founded as a covenant between God and Moses.
Yeah, this is what's interesting, because, when I talk to people about this, I know other liberal friends that, believe in evolution and stuff, and they don't take a lot of this stuff seriously, but they do wonder, like, why do you care about what other people think when it comes to, like, the
because they own and control everything.
Well, there's that, but something like over a third of Americans I really do believe this. And like the wedge strategy you're talking about too, right? Yeah, like that's not conspiracy theory. Like you can find that document, you can find the origins of that. That's and people will talk about how they were involved with that and still are involved in that.
At that time, the people that I was talking to at that moment were not the run-of-the-mill Christian nationalists, although Christian nationalism is already a hairy, scary, big damn deal.
Yeah,
that is trying to overturn the United States government, to undermine everything that our representative democratic republic stood for, and replace it with a theocracy. But the people I was talking to at that moment were extremists in that they were Reconstructionists following R.J. Rushdoony. And they were bragging about how many senators they had already placed that are in government now that hail from the Chalcedon Institute. So we have Reconstructionists in our federal legislation already, right? And so what do these people want to do? They don't just want to establish a theocracy. They want to establish a theocracy that enforces Levitical law, not just God's law, Levitical law. That's for anybody that doesn't know what Levitical law means. It means that you could be put to death for working on weekends. It means if you think Sharia law was bad, hold on to your ass.
Yeah. And like it's not in line with, most American values or democratic values, or at least what most of us would want it to be, right? Like there is kind of this conflation of church and state that we've seen, all these people like trying to put these 10 commandments documents or statutes, on the grounds. But it's more than that, right? It's like what you're saying. There are people in power who want to literally push this agenda, like here in Texas. And you fought against this. I remember. Do you remember when they were putting Moses in the history books for the Texas education system and put a line in there saying basically how, morality was brought to people through the 10 commandments through Moses, and that like ended up passing, right? Like isn't that now in some of those books?
It is. And it doesn't matter how many experts, how many PhD professors from what organizations presented solid evidence, not just that you don't have the evidence to make the claim that you're trying to teach, which should be enough.
Right.
But the fact that we have substantial evidence against it. It's not just that you can't cite a single founding father ever who implied in any way that our Constitution or our Bill of Rights or any of this was in any sense based on the Ten Commandments. It's not enough that lack of evidence. It's that we do have founding fathers who say in no way was our system based on Moses. It had nothing to do with the Ten Commandments. As a matter of fact, we're exactly the opposite of that. And obviously I'm paraphrasing this. But the system of government that is commonly associated with the fictional character of Moses, were Moses to exist, he would adamantly hate every aspect of our representative democratic republic, wherein the people make and change the laws.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Moses would be like, the law is whatever I tell you God told me it is, and you believe what I said because God told me to tell you to believe what I said.
Yeah, kind of a surprise. The ancient Jewish people weren't super big fans of democracy. They lived under judges and kings and different tribal systems and stuff at one point, if you want to get really far back into it. But yeah, at no point were they ever a representative democracy, that had a constitution for their peoples or anything like that.
I've talked to a number of conservative Republicans in the last couple of years who have just come out and admit they want a king.
Yeah, some of them really do, don't they? Yeah, I know. It's so
but
bad.
to admit that.
Yeah.
America is a failed experiment. Why? Because you have this thing called the American dream, where even brown people from foreign countries can come over here, and it doesn't even matter what their religion is if they're not Christian, that suddenly we have a meritocracy, where the idea is that your caste system only exists in India. It doesn't exist here. So if you come here, you're no longer part of any caste. You're just a person like everybody else. And you get to be an American. So I can go to India. I could live the rest of my life in India, but I'll never be Indian.
Sure.
But they can come over here and they'll be American. And we're the only country in the world that is like that. Where all of that past baggage of all of the religious discrimination and all of the things that they used to label on you in Europe or in Asia or wherever, all of that just simply evaporates here. Now it's a meritocracy. What can you do?
Yeah.
That was the game. That was what it was supposed to be. That's the American dream. And then Trump said that the American dream is dead, which is appropriate that he said that because he's the one who killed it.
Well, yeah. So why I think your work is important is, if people don't want to talk about some of these issues of young earth creationism or science or history or whatever, that's fine if you're not interested in it. But to put that in the public school education system, right? Or to put people in power, in authority who are making policies who do believe that, like, that is a problem, because that stops becoming the difference of opinion between two persons. That becomes a policy, right? That becomes how we're going to live our lives. And I wish
an opinion. It's really not even opinion, because I've gotten admissions from these people, like on the Board of Education, that they are not going to teach what is factually accurate. That it matters more to them that the sequestered students, other people's children, are made to believe, even if they know it's not true. And I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but I've had a number of people admit to me that they know that what they believe is not true, but they're going to believe it anyway.
Yeah, that happens. And that happens more than what people think. Like, if you tell some people that, and that sounds crazy, but they will straight up say sometimes, like, yeah, it doesn't matter if it's true. It makes me feel good. And that's, I don't know. I can't live my life like that anymore. Maybe I could, but now I just really can't do that. So that's, we already got some great calls in the queue tonight. So I want to jump ahead and just go straight to calls. What do you think, Aron? You ready?
Please do.
Cool. Hey, people are wanting to know, what are you drinking tonight?
Tonight, I couldn't get the stuff I would normally drink. I normally drink the locally Dallas brewed, or at least Texas brewed, homebrew craft beers, imperial stouts. However, not able to obtain the ones I wanted. I'm drinking Einstock, which is an Icelandic toasted porter. It's not the best beer you can get in Iceland, but it's the best Icelandic beer you can get when you're not in Iceland.
There you go. I like that. Before we get to calls, I just want to give a quick plug to the Truth Wanted Patreon. You may have noticed I forgot to say this last week, but my lighting looks a lot better. That's because I have this awesome LED backlight, and that was paid for by you guys. So thank you guys who helped donate to this show. And I also wanted to address something real quickly. I get these questions every once in a while, but I started to get some more recently. People saying, damn, why don't people, why doesn't the ACA pay for you to do Truth Wanted? And the truth is, none of the hosts at the ACA are paid to do what we do. We're volunteers. And I want it to be that way. I'd love for it to keep being that way. Because the truth is, this isn't a one-man show. I mean, I am the one host of Truth Wanted, but we have about a half a dozen people who help work on this show every week, who help do editing, who help do call screening, who help moderate and do all kinds of stuff for the show. So, and that happens with all the shows we produce here. So, maybe one day if I do my own independent projects and stuff, I'd be interested in, getting paid for that. But this Truth Wanted is the people's project, baby. This is a group project right here. I'm like you do the group project with someone in school, and you got the one guy doing the research and the one guy running stuff, and then the one guy presenting. That's me. I'm the guy presenting at the end, but there's a lot of other stuff that goes in the back burner for that. So thank you guys who donate on Patreon. Really appreciate you. And let's go ahead and jump straight into the calls. First, I want to get to Christian calling in from Wisconsin.
Hey,
Christian, what's going on? Hello, Christian.
Well. How are you both?
There we go. We're doing all right. I see that you wanted to ask a question about phylogeny to Aron, which, I mean, that's right up Aron's alley, I think. So go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I'm studying biology, and I wanted to ask you, oftentimes when I discuss with creationists, and I come from a very fundamentalist background in a fundamentalist creationist home, and I'm curious, often a lot of fundamentalists will ask me this question: can you explain to me how to trace back the human genus to the very beginning and just take me through step by step by step? Otherwise, I'm going to accept the God hypothesis. So how would you explain this in a way to where it's palatable and understandable to creationists, but also being respectable to the actual scientific literature?
I did a video series that is on 49 episodes. There will be a 50th episode coming out as soon as I can get the time to do it. But it's called The Systematic Classification of Life. And I show from the most basal and the largest categories of what people are. Because contrary to a lot of creationist arguments, you never have an instance where one thing turned into or gave birth to another fundamentally different thing. That's the thing that creationists always ask for. And they ask for that because it actually violates two of the laws of evolution. So it would actually disprove evolution, which is why creationists ask for that thing. In the largest categories, I'm going to give you an idea. I mean, for the Linnaean construct, he had like 7 categories, and we've discovered that there's closer to 70 named clades, and that's just the named ones. We've got a lot more that don't have names that are classifications for people. I mean, mammal, for example. At what point did a mammal ever give birth to a non-mammal? Well, they've produced populations of different types of mammals, but they never stopped being mammal. And one of the confusions that people have is, I don't want to get into the confusion things, but some people are using a 200-year-old classification of reptile that nobody uses anymore. So that's one of the things that people get confused about. But in that series, Systematic Classification of Life, I go every episode to describe what the criteria is for this clade. Do you accept that these criteria apply to you, that you fit this, right? So like a mammal didn't stop being a vertebrate when it became a mammal. It's still a vertebrate, right? Every mammal is still a vertebrate. And when primates didn't stop being mammals. So there's no point when you stop being what you were to become the new thing. You may create a new clade that your parents don't belong to, but you still belong to every clade your ancestors did. You can't grow out of your ancestry. I don't know if that answered your question. Did it?
Oh yeah, it got very much close. Could I ask a quick follow up? I wanted to kind of dig in a little bit on the aspects of genus, because I was talking and one of the am I good to keep going?
Yeah, go ahead, Christian. Aron's dogs were just really excited. They wanted to chime in too. So.
Oh, okay. I'm sure they know a lot about phylogeny, but
yeah.
Regardless of that, I'm curious when you're discussing the issues of, and you hear someone say, "Well, I'm not going to accept the evolution evidence unless you can explain it to me 100% all the way through, or otherwise I'm going to just reject it offhand." How would you respond, I guess, to the more general point of that?
So you have They have a belief system in which they have 0% evidence, but they're not going to accept the evolution evidence unless we give them 100% evidence. It doesn't matter that nothing is ever 100% in any investigation, which is why things we know to be true and can prove to be true are still considered theories. So like atomic theory, is it just a theory that atoms make up everything? I mean, is it just a theory that, like cell theory of biology or germ theory of disease? We know that germs, pathogens, cause disease. This is a fact, but we also put it into the classification of theory. A theory is a body of knowledge that has predictive ability and includes all of the facts, hypotheses, and even the natural laws, because there are some laws that are specific only to some theories, but they want to misrepresent that. So they want theory to sound like a blind guess, where they have absolute conviction in the thing for which there is absolutely no evidence and literally no reason to believe it. So they're using a form of confirmation bias. They're putting unrealistic restraints, and they should understand that the best you can get is what, 98% verification on anything.
But come on, but Aron, the Bible tells me, dude, like it's in there. That's the evidence. Come on, man. It's right there in Genesis. That's
well, then you can't use the Bible to contest the Bhagavad Gita, because the Bhagavad Gita says exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
But attributes it to a much stronger God and did shut up to a much stronger God and did that at minimum centuries, if not millennium, before the Bible.
Yeah, it's true. The way I always think of it too is like the Bible, specifically Christianity, is just one claim about how the world works, and there's a whole bunch of different claims. So we just have to figure out which claim is the most likely to be true, right? How do we determine one claim from another? I don't think people all really think about it that way. I think they just think like Christianity is the truth, and then there's like all these other ideas. If you're used to thinking about it like that, it's gonna be hard to kind of
a lot of times these people think that the Bible is the oldest book. They have no idea.
Yeah.
Tell me that Christianity is the oldest religion. Really? It's older than Judaism even?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
There are Christians who believe that.
Yeah, it's true. And they don't even realize that not only is it not the oldest, but it's not even the oldest surviving religion out there either. Ask any Zoroastrian and they'll be the first to tell you, they've been doing it for even longer. So
Hinduism is the oldest religion in continuous practice. But when people say that the Bible is evidence of God, well, then that means that the Avestas of Zarathustra are therefore evidence of Ahura Mazda. And the Bhagavad Gita is evidence of Lord Krishna.
Yeah. Doesn't really work.
They're not going to tell you that, yes, there is evidence of Lord Krishna. But they can't figure out what the disconnect.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Christian, great call. Quick question. I loved it. Hopefully, Aron was able to answer it for you. Thanks again for calling into the show. Of course, we got lots of people here wanting to talk to you here, Aron, but this one is a little bit different from probably the conversations you've had. Let's see. Mark calling from Dallas, Texas. Mark, what's going on?
Hey, guys. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. My call screener, our call screener, Katie, tonight, just put, I've seen UFOs in the description for your call. So what do you mean, Mark? Accurate. You've seen UFOs? What's going on?
I have. And I would just like to say that I understand that my experience could have been an hallucination, but I don't believe that it was, because I wasn't doing any drugs, and it's the only time that I ever had this experience, before or since.
Okay.
And have either of you ever had any similar, I won't say similar, but have you guys ever seen anything that you can't explain in the sky?
I've definitely seen things in the sky that I couldn't explain, but most of that, when I think about it, is when I was a kid, and I probably just didn't know what the best explanation was. In my adult life, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. What about you, Aron?
I've never personally seen anything in the sky that I couldn't explain.
Okay, so there you go. So Mark, you're at odds with us right now.
Okay. Well, what I saw, and it I'm from Dallas, the Dallas area. I was living in Fort Worth actually at the time, and I saw 3 lights coming at me, and there was no sound. I thought it was a plane at first, just a normal airplane, but as it got closer, there were no sounds, and it went over, and then it shot off into the distance, and I could see they were like it sounds insane. It sounds crazy, and I understand that, but I don't understand what it was, and I don't know.
Okay, so let's break it down just real quick. So you saw 3 lights in the sky, and they moved away really fast without a sound. Is that kind of the summary?
Yeah, like, do you know, like, when you see an airplane coming at you, they have the 2 lights on the wings and then one at the nose? And
sure, yeah. They have the lights underneath the wings. Okay. But you're saying it couldn't have been that because you didn't hear a sound, or at least maybe you don't think that's the most likely explanation.
Yeah, well, there were no jet noises, so it wasn't a jet airplane.
Maybe, I don't know. See, well, here's what I'll first say. You're calling him from Dallas. You know, the Dallas airport is one of the biggest airports in the nation, probably if not the world. I don't know. I know there's lots of stuff flying in and out of there. I wouldn't be personally surprised if you saw a plane and you just couldn't hear the noise. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that could blanket that for whatever reason, depending on what environment you're at. I don't know, because and it's also hard to talk about stories which are, can't be corroborated outside of eyewitness testimony, right? I'm not saying that.
It's totally anecdotal.
Yeah. But my first thought is just because you didn't hear a noise doesn't mean it couldn't have been a plane or couldn't have been some sort of aircraft. I think there are definitely explanations as to why that could be the case. But Aron looked like he had something to say about it. I don't know. What did you think, Aron?
A couple of months ago, I remember seeing a plane come into Love Field, and I was surprised at how close the plane was, and yet I couldn't hear it because I'm in a very noisy area, and it's coming at me. So, I mean, it's one reason why I wouldn't have heard it. But I mean, just to go to outside of that, let's say you saw something that actually was spectacular. There was a movie called Firefox with Clint Eastwood where they're talking about, stealing some spy plane. And the funny thing is that spy plane was based on the SR-71, which hadn't been released yet. And so they released this thing and they say, oh, here's this plane we've been secretly using since Vietnam. We just didn't tell anybody about. But now we're going to tell you about it. And I thought, okay, well, they're going to come out and they're going to release the fact that they have an SR-71 and have been using the SR-71 since the 60s, and that it's hypersonic and go Mach 3 and can ride on the edge of the atmosphere and all this. So why would I believe that they don't have another even better secret plane now?
Yeah, that could be true.
Yeah.
Although, go ahead, Mark.
I'm sorry. I absolutely agree. Like, what I saw was completely, it makes no sense to what I know in my own experiences. It was wild and it was weird, and I don't know. I just thought this, people do see these things, and it really makes for some confusion,
And I'll grant you that not all of them are explained. Not all of them are ever identified.
Yeah, and Mark, if you watch this show, you're obviously a smart guy, right? That's for anybody who watches Truth Wanted. But even we as people who really research this stuff and are really skeptical about this stuff, even it can be hard for us to find exact explanations for stuff, especially when we're working with just anecdote, right? But I think it is important to remember not to jump to any conclusions such as it must be interdimensional Bigfoot, or whatever we were talking about last week. And you're not saying that, Mark. I know you're not saying that, but there are people who will jump to that. That's their next best thing. But Aron was gonna say something. What do you got?
Well, it's reptiles from the Sirius star system who have infiltrated the Illuminati.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you take the percentage of people who, don't know as much about this stuff and the amount of stuff we just got flying out in the air all the time, You know, like you're gonna have people who are wondering about some of this stuff, you know, and I can't even imagine the people who were looking at this stuff before the internet. Like, oh my gosh, like they were probably writing all kinds of things. I mean, people still are writing crazy things, but you know, at least we can kind of cross corroborate and stuff. And any videos that are put out there, we can at least try to explain or figure out if they're hoaxes. Now we got more hoaxes now than ever. But,
yeah,
you know,
I do have a little background on. I flew drones for the military, so I haven't seen everything. I'm not claiming to, but I don't know. It blew me away. It was so wild. And again, I'm not saying that it necessarily is space aliens, but
sure.
It was just crazy. Like to me, it was so real.
Yeah, and you know what, Mark? Those videos that were released, was it by the Pentagon recently, in the past couple of months, about you know, those unidentified flying objects that they saw like over a decade ago now. The pilots from those videos are also saying like, yeah, they don't know what those were, you know, and they're pilots and stuff. Now, that's not to say that a pilot may not necessarily be, you know, completely informed on everything that's going on geopolitically and stuff. You know, maybe there's some sort of aircraft out there that somebody has that they didn't know about or whatever. But, you know, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that even somebody like you could figure it out. I think it's hard. It's hard to, especially when we're talking about distant objects that we're just using, you know, we don't have a really good reference point for them. And yeah.
We just brought this up just before showtime. There's this amusing scene out of Easy Rider.
See, he keeps talking about movies that were made before I was born, so I don't know. I don't have a reference point for any of this. But
so yeah. Dennis Hopper is surprised because he sees a light in the sky that just took off that way. And then Jack Nicholson starts telling him about these Venusians that have been coming here in an advisory capacity for decades. And they live among us and they work among us. And the government knows all about them. But they can't make the public announcement because it would be devastating to our antiquated systems. And he says, well, how would you know all that? And Nicholson says, well, you just saw one. And Dennis Hopper gives a perfect skeptical answer. He says, I saw a light in the sky. I didn't see it working here.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, Mark, thanks for calling in with your story. Hopefully we gave you at least something to rattle your brain with. Probably maybe nothing you hadn't heard before, but hey, it's a weird story, and I'm glad you could share it with us.
Can I say one more thing? Sorry, just
last thing, Mark.
I think it's the perfect show.
Perfect show for what? Bullshit.
Well, yeah, but Dugway Proving Ground. Have you ever heard of it?
No, I don't think so.
It's up in Utah, and I've seen it on alien shows. It's like kind of like Area 51, but not as popular.
Okay.
People should not think anything of it. I've been there, and it's just another military base. I just wanted to say that. Like,
okay. Yeah.
I just want to tell you, like, it is a weird base, but it is not. There's nothing weird going on there.
Yeah, because they've moved all of that really weird space alien shit and Illuminati nonsense and the correlation between the two, and they put that in the basement under the foundation of the Denver airport.
Yeah, or in the Smithsonian.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that as well.
Yeah,
that's why they have the demonic horse with the laser eyes.
Yeah. It's all under there. Well, Mark, thanks again for calling in. Appreciate the story. Hope you have a good rest of your night. Yeah, I actually, I remember, I think my family and I drove by at least the outside of Area 50. Well, I don't know if it was Area 51. I think it was another Air Force base somewhere out in the desert or something. You know, it's just a base. It's just like, you know, you can't really see much from the outside, but the secret's inside, man. We did go, my family and I did go to Roswell, New Mexico. And if you go to Roswell, oh my gosh, man, they play up that alien stuff so hard. It's like all these alien themed restaurants, and they got the museum there and stuff. Like that's their boom, the tourism scene, you know, people coming to see stuff. It's pretty wild. Well, we have some more callers on the line. We got, man.
I'm going to try to go through these a little faster just to make sure everybody gets a shot.
Oh, man. People just want to talk to you, Aron. That's all it is. They just want to talk to you. I want to talk to next someone who's been waiting for a bit, the Dolly Llama. Not the Dolly Llama, but Dolly Llama. That's the name that they choose to go by. What's going on, Dolly Llama?
Not much. How are you today, Dan and Aron?
Doing good. Your call was also talking about some UFO mischief or ghosts, something. What you wanted to talk about something along those lines. What exactly did you want to talk about?
I was going to let it be up to you. I have some ghost stories, or I have a UFO experience that I debunked. Both are about debunking.
Okay, so you have a debunked story. You know what? Aron's the guest tonight. Aron, which one would you rather want to hear?
I'll let him choose. I don't care.
Okay, we're on a UFO bent tonight. Let's go with UFOs. I'm ready.
All right. So I live in a very small town in rural North Canada at the time. I was about 17 or 18. I was walking home and saw a very weird kind of light just kind of hovering in the sky. It kept changing different colors. It would go from like orange to white to red to blue. Those were the four colors it would change at no regular pattern or interval. And, well, I was young. I was stupid. I went home and tried to commit intergalactic war, and I shot at it with my pellet gun.
Wait, you shot at the sky? Like, it was close enough for you to shoot?
I shot at the UFO. Yeah, it was weird. It was kind of hovering like 300-400 feet above me.
Okay, and what happened?
Well, it kind of seemed to shoot off really quick, but I kind of see it kind of hit to the ground. I went and I picked it up, and it turned out to be a foil balloon that said "Happy 30th Anniversary."
Oh man, that is a good story. I like that. How many people have spent their lives convinced that they saw something from another world when really it was just Wanda trying to buy George a 30th anniversary, wedding balloon? Like that's got to be a thing, right? Like that has to have happened to other people who didn't figure it out.
My parents used to tell me this story about how they saw this glowing green gas that filled up the sky, and they were sure it was some kind of gas, but it was glowing green. So they were absolutely certain that it must be radioactive, and that it was a product of a UFO. And then I showed them what Aurora Borealis looks like. I'm like, oh.
I live in northern Canada. I see it all the time.
Aurora Borealis. Oh man! At this time of year, in this particular location,
my family lived in Arizona.
Not this time of year. It's usually wintertime. I see it.
I know. I was making that Simpsons joke that everybody's been referencing because the steamed ham spit. But anyway, yeah. Well, Dolly Llama. Yeah, in the kitchen. That is a funny story. I'm glad you could tell that on the show. Thanks for calling in to tell us that. Really, really made me laugh. I just can't get over the idea of like, that's a thing. Not only is that a thing, like, God, people's lives have been changed because they saw a balloon in the sky. Like that has to have happened. Somebody like it's statistically impossible for it not to be. Like it's wild. People are wild, I gotta say. We got more calls to get to, though. I want to talk to Vade, who's calling in from New Mexico. Vade, what's going on?
Hey, not a lot. Those two pretty good calls. I think you guys hit the nail on the head with what you're talking about, UFOs. But so actually, I was if you're interested, we could talk about these Pentagon videos that just got released.
Well, I'll tell you what the call screener screened for. The call screener said that you want to ask about the origins of mythology, and I think that is more up to Aron's expertise.
I wouldn't say that I have an expertise.
I thought it was a good.
Well, you've made more video content on it than I have, Aron. I'd say that's probably true, right? And in the world that we inhabit, if you make a YouTube video about it, that means you're an expert. So your credentials, you've already got it. You have the education. Dude.
Okay, so give me the question how you would phrase it.
So it's actually not a. So I guess the call screening got a little bit confused. I wanted to talk about the origins of God mythology.
Okay.
Dan, this is something I've messaged you about before, and I actually just sent you that video again, just if you want to reference it later. And actually it connects to the last caller who was talking about the aurora, or y'all's brief conversation about the aurora borealis. There's a scientist from here in New Mexico. Well, I don't know where he's from, but he was working here. He worked on the Z machine, which was at the time and possibly still the highest energy output that we have. Creates temperatures higher than what you'd see, what would be measured on the surface of the sun. So he's talking about high energy plasma physics. And the historical record shows that in the past, our atmosphere was energized with there was a lot higher ionic energy in the atmosphere than there is presently. So you would have been able to see auroras basically all over the world.
Okay.
And his idea, and he actually has published papers on it in plasma physics and kind of crossing over into anthropology. These plasma discharges at very high energy can kind of take the shape of stick people or figures, especially figures that have been seen around the world painted on caves.
Wait, who's saying this? Who's saying this? Is the people working on this machine? Like, where is this coming from?
This guy's name is Anthony Peratt.
Wait, so it's just one guy who made this machine?
No. Oh, the Z machine. Sorry. No, he was just working on the Z machine. I was just kind of saying, like, that is at a national laboratory at the Los Alamos National Labs, if you've heard of that. That's where some of the atomic bombs were assembled there. I think they were instrumental in developing the solar panels, photovoltaic cells that we use today.
I used to live in Los Alamos.
There's conspiracy theories about Los Alamos too.
Yeah, the locals called it Los Alamos.
Oh yeah.
Lost Alamos. That's pretty funny. I guess I kind of lost the thread there a little bit, Vade. I guess something with people are seeing apparitions. Are they seeing it in the sky?
No, it's not. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So I should have started out with an actual question for background.
Yes.
Do y'all, because I've heard several of the ACA hosts say that they believe gods were created because people like to tell stories, because we have naturally imaginative minds, and we just want to have a story that describes things and gives things a reason for whatever.
Uh-huh. Are you asking if I subscribe to that? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think, I'm sure there are God stories where that was the reason why, but to say that as a, complete explanation for every single God mythos out there, that can't be true. That just can't be true. I think it comes for a lot of complex reasons.
Prehistorical conceptions of God.
Well, even with prehistorical conceptions of God, not even talking about Christian monotheist ideas of God, I think God definitely developed in a sociological context. I think it definitely came up in groups. I don't think it necessarily happened with just one individual. I'm sure lots of people contributed to the stories and to the ideas of gods. But yeah, I don't think it's one person. Yeah. I think it happens through groups and just through, just passing down of culture. Something that starts off as a story could just become fact to a group of people after a certain period of time. Very quickly, we see that happen. Most recently with Prince. Oh gosh, what's his name? You know what I'm talking about, Aron. The people who. There was an English prince that visited this tribe, and the tribe venerated him as a deity over a couple of decades. Pretty soon, they were came up with these stories about him and how he arrived and awaiting his second coming.
It sounds like you're talking about a cargo cult.
Yeah. And that story was one of the origins of the cargo cults, and it was just there to demonstrate that, these stories about gods can happen in very quick amounts of time. Yeah.
So I think more generally what my hypothesis is is that these auroras that would have been visible all over the world were interpreted by prehistorical human beings as gods because they.
I mean,
they
why?
were visible in the sky. People drew. Well, this is what these high energy. It's really. I've been trying to email and get somebody to put visuals up while I talk about this stuff. But
I can't do that for you, Vade. But wait, let me cut this down.
Right.
Let me cut this down because real quick, like, why would you make the assumption that every single god belief comes from the Aurora Borealis? Like, why would you make that? Because
well, it wasn't
here's why.
Borealis, and I'm not saying every single god belief.
Well, prehistoric god beliefs, because like we have like prehistoric god beliefs that seem to come from a variety of different origins, and they're talking about all kinds of different things. I don't know why do like weird things in the sky have to be an origin. Like, is there maybe I would believe it if like a specific tribe or a specific populations of people develop from their stories from it.
You want to talk about specific tribes?
No, because your claim, Vade, your claim was that this is happening all over the world. That this was an explanation for like tons of groups, and I don't know why you would say that.
Tribes in Arizona, tribes in Spain, tribes in Italy, what's now all these places all across the world. You could see these auroras. And as a prehistoric human being, you would look up and see the auroras, and they resemble a stick figure or a person with a scorpion head.
Let me ask you this: How long ago are they estimating that they could see these Aurora Borealises in these different locations? When did that stop happening?
Thousands of years. Oh, when did it stop? I would have to go back into his research.
Okay, because we can look at that, right? We can actually see. Here's my point with this, Vade, and Aron clearly has something to say. But my point with this is we can look at populations of humans that where they were at geographically at different periods of time, and if it doesn't match up to where they're at, then that's a clear way to show that this might not be true. But like even then, right? Like I'm not an anthropologist. I'm not studying any of these specific groups. If you really want somebody to give an opinion on whether this theory works out, you'd probably want to ask somebody who really studies the origins of these specific peoples that you're talking about. But if we're just going to make broad generalizations, I don't know if that's going to be helping anybody. But Aron, go ahead because
you're ready. There was a time when there was more ionization in the atmosphere than there is today, and it sounds like you're talking about some situation that was probably in excess of 1 billion years ago.
A billion? No, not 1 billion. This would have been maybe 20,000. I would have to look, but I would say offhand it'd be in the tens of thousands of years ago, not 1 billion or 1 million years ago.
Okay, so you've got a study that says tens of thousands of years ago you were able to see Aurora Borealis, and this study says that tens of thousands of years ago these Aurora Borealises looked like people.
Well, that's the easiest way to interpret them as a prehistoric human, because you don't know what you're looking at.
Has anybody ever seen an Aurora Borealis that looked like a person?
Yes. So when you think more about the actual physics of high energy plasma, yes, it's been recorded in laboratory.
High energy plasma looks like people in laboratories.
Yeah, if you ionize an atmosphere in laboratory, you can produce these exact same shapes that look like petroglyphs that appear all over the world.
I'm going to have to see documentation of that because I'm not buying it.
I know, yeah. I've been trying to communicate with the ACA about giving pictures out. If you just Google Anthony Peratt, that's P-E-R-A-T-T. Anthony is spelled like Anthony, last name Peratt, P-E-R-A-T-T. There's some pretty good images that show up immediately. the video that I like the most is called Parat and Petroglyph. It's on YouTube for free. It's just him giving a lecture about these different shapes that appear all over the world. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm looking at this. I'm seeing pictures from Google Images and stuff. You know, I can't do like a live debunking of something I've never seen before. You know, that's just not going to happen. Maybe I'll look into this Vade, and maybe I can talk about it next week or something. But I'm already just.
I'm betting there's not going to be, and I just want to say it right now while we're live.
Yeah.
There's not going to be peer-reviewed research that backs this up.
Oh, there is. This guy has published papers. I could probably look it up right now and give you the ISBN number, whatever it is, if you'd like that.
I don't doubt that somebody can publish papers through university. What I am doubting is that there is a published paper out there that says these ionized plasma is the reasons why we interpret, you know, cave paintings the way that we do. Like, I don't know. I don't know how the connection's being made. I can see some. I don't know. Well, I'd have to look at it for. I know, Vade. It's unfair to you because you want to put your stuff out there and you know, like we didn't come to this conversation quite as prepared, you know, for that. But you know, the idea is out there. Let me take a look into it, and maybe I'll give a special report for next week and see what I find. How about that, Vade? Will that satisfy you?
That sounds good.
All right.
Yeah, if you guys do want, I can post some of these papers on Twitter or something.
All right. It would help, yeah.
All right. I'll do a special Truth Wanted report next week on this guy, and I'll give you what I think. I'll give you my thoughts. We'll go for there. But for now, I got to get to some other callers. All right. So, Vade, thanks for calling in.
Thanks a lot for talking to me for a while.
Yeah. I hope I hope you told us at least what you wanted to say, because that was kind of hard to follow for a good 10 minutes there. But yeah, okay. So anytime physics comes up on this program, it can go one of two ways. It can go to really interesting conversations about cosmology and just the universe and just how we interact with the world, really cool. Or it can go into just the weirdest stuff, man, the weirdest stuff. And this is on the weird side. I don't know how to interpret this. Aurora Borealis from a couple of thousands of years ago that we interpret as paintings. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to make of this.
Yeah, well, there was something on Google Scholar, so I'll give him that.
Yeah, and I'm seeing some stuff too. But I'm already seeing some stuff kind of debunking this maybe. But I want to give this a fair shake because this is brand new information for me. If this was something I heard before, I could be like, bam, I know why this is wrong. This is kind of different. And this is from a guy who looks like a legit scientist. So I'll give a Truth Wanted report. We'll do it next week. That's just so I can get to some other topics here. But next, I want to talk to Kevin from New York, who's been waiting for quite a bit here. Kevin, calling in too. Truth Wanted, what's going on?
Hey, you guys. It's good to talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I wanted to bring up the theory about how I believe that, well, I agree with a popularized theory from Dr. Nick Bostrom, I believe his name is, and how he states that the universe is like a computer simulation. Now, stop me at any time because I think you guys might have issues with that theory.
Yeah, I'll stop you right now because I've talked about simulations so much on this show. You can simulate me having conversations about simulations because there's enough data out there to work with. I think you can come up with an AI, algorithm that could make that happen. But if you want to talk about something new and interesting, if you can add something to the conversation, I might be willing to hear it. But otherwise, I don't know. I don't know if I want to talk about simulations.
I hear you. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but the only reason why I bring this up is because this works off of the premise that things have to be right in order to work. And I know that sounds like a vague generalization of things, but
it does.
That sums up things. But working off of that the reason why I say that as well is because even from the very smallest elements of matter that we've ever discovered have to come together to work, or else these elements independently would be inert. They would then be inert and not result in anything if they didn't come together in such a way.
What does that have to do with simulations? That matter works. I don't understand. What's the connection?
Well, the connection is that I mean this is working off of things that we already know, and excuse me.
All right, you got to go a little bit more than that, because there's a lot of things that we can come to conclusions on based on what we already know, and I don't know if we're all living in a simulation is one of them.
Well, like I said, I just bring this off of the premise that the very simple, the very simple of elements that we've ever discovered had to come together with a type of intention, something that we only.
I don't agree with that
so far. It's something that we've only observed as a human characteristic.
Why? Why do they have to come together with an intention?
It's not. We haven't observed that as a human characteristic. We've observed the very opposite. That with no human involvement or intent, and even against human intent, things have come together in various operable ways through chemistry that are definitely not through any kind of intent.
Well, based off of that, I kind of wanted to tell you guys why I arrived from this from a Christian perspective, because stop, hold on, wait, that's interesting. I do want to know how you got that from a Christian perspective, but like Aron just made a response to you, like you didn't answer that, and I want to know what do you think about Aron's response? Well, he's right, because I mean, here we are on Earth, but we see things out there in the universe that are much, much larger, and seemingly, I hate to use random in style, but that's what we observe.
Let me ask you a question.
Even
the idea that we live in a simulation is one of the most, for me, the most personally annoying. It's my pet peeve. Because what I deal with creationists is just varying levels of reality denial. And with creationism, you're denying, methodological naturalism. And then how much more else are you denying after that, until you get to the ultimate where you deny all of reality in its entirety. And so the idea that we're all living in a simulation means that while people think they understand, well, we have, people who can demonstrate the accuracy of their understanding with nuclear physics, with atomic theory, germ theory of disease, as we brought up before, how these pathogens cause disease, how our senses work, how our eyes see light refracted and how this light refracts into our cones and rods, and how the photons function, how we hear with vibrations through a medium that is, that we get the stirrup, the little bones in our ears, so we're able to understand. So all these experts understand all their different fields, but if we're a simulation, then nobody knows anything. I mean, nobody knows anything, because hearing doesn't work, vision doesn't work, the cells, the disease, the atoms, none of that works, because there's no such thing as anything. It's all just imaginary. Let's just all go play like we're in the Matrix.
I hear exactly what you're saying, and I don't mean to insult your intelligence.
The point I want to get quickly is if we can have virtual reality devices that may fool us in one way, but what you're talking about is something that goes against not only Hitchens' razor, but also Occam's razor being the most convoluted conspiracy theory ever imaginable, that is wholly unnecessary. If God wanted to create the universe as a simulation, he would have to go through orders of magnitude more complication and effort than just making the universe real.
I don't mean to insult your intelligence. I see exactly what you're saying. And even all those things that you named are very special in their own right. But they have to work together to, even though they show evidence of development, they have to come together to reach a certain goal within that space.
What?
I don't mean to insult your intelligence by this. I don't mean to insult your intelligence by this, but I mean something as simple. And yes, I do work with Occam's razor, but even something as simple as a flower on the ground, which first arrived from a seed, has to derive its energy from the sun, something completely independent.
Okay. Let's time out right there. So that's something we can talk about, right? Where the seed has to work on other things in the system, right, in order for it to grow and do stuff, right? It's this, the seed itself isn't controlling these things, and things are happening to it, and so it seems like a lot of random events are happening, and so it couldn't just be random. There has to be some sort of intention, right? Like, that's what it seems like, because otherwise, how could a flower grow the way it does? How could a human be born the way it does if it weren't for these, systems? But the truth is, even as simple as a seed is the long form development of years and years and years and years and years and years of evolution, right? And Aron can tell you all about this on his channel. What seems simple to us, what seems incredulous to us, is actually the result of a very long and complex system of changes. And we can look at those changes. We can see the steps of the changes and how they happen in those processes over millions of years. In fact, I think plant evolution is more convincing for some people than animal evolution. We often use animal evolution examples, in the atheist community, but I honestly, you can look at. I think plants can be more convincing because you can see much easier how those step-by-step processes happen. But yeah, I get the,
I hear what you're saying, but will you not agree with me that in a certain sense that we owe our subjectivity to the universe? But
I don't know what that question means. What does that mean?
We owe our subjectivity to the universe is because we use objectivity to get the closest that we can to truth.
Okay, we have jumped from like 4 different topics. I'm sorry, Kevin. I'm losing my patience because we talked about starting with simulations, and now we're talking about objectivity and all kinds of stuff. We have to stick with one thing, otherwise I got to move on to another caller, because this isn't a conversation. This is you saying stuff and then us responding, and then you going on to another thing.
It does hinge on to my simulation theory, because the reason why I brought up subjectivity is because it's not as simple as take definitions of subjectivity and objectivity for what they are, but saying that we owe our subjectivity to the universe is not exactly saying it. That's like,
okay, I'm dropping this call. I'm sorry. I'm done. I can't. I'm turning into Matt. I'm getting grumpy. I can't believe this. There is no conversation happening here. There is no exchange of information. I don't usually drop calls like that, but I just can't. I'm losing. There's nothing happening here. And I don't know if all parties involved in that conversation were fully cognizant of what was going on. I just don't know. So I'm going to have to move on to another call. If you want to call in again, feel free to stick to one topic so that we can talk about it and explore some ideas, because I don't know what was going on there. I really don't. Yeah. So moving on. Let's try to get to some more callers here. I want to get to Matthew calling in from Palm Bay, Florida. Matthew, what's going on?
Show recording is on. Dual channel.
Hello, Matthew.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Doing all right. Looking forward to some other calls.
Awesome. Well, just on a quick note, I just want to say I was a former young Earth creationist for like a decade. I was brainwashed into that whole thing. So just getting to hear Aron Ra for a little bit is freaking awesome, because anything he does to tear that whole argument apart brings me a lot of joy to my heart. So like I said, side note on that, I apologize for a small tangent, but just wanted to give props where props was due.
It's all good. Aron looked like he was losing his edge there. So I think that'll bring up his spirits to help do the rest of the show, and he won't run away and not do this with me anymore. So thanks for that, man. I'm thanking you for complimenting Aron.
Awesome. You're welcome. Anytime. Like I said, I have a lot of respect for the way he goes about his arguments. So
yeah, for sure. But what's going on tonight, Matthew? What you want to call about?
So, it's just something that's been going on in my head for a little bit, where, I'm an atheist and someone who studied, Christianity very thoroughly, could see a lot of the history between the church and like atheism and agnosticism. And sometimes it's not always met with the nicest means. So what I'm getting to is that with sort of the rise of more and more fundamentalist Christians that I see, more and more people who are taking scripture literally, basically if they're trying to work towards theocracy almost, especially in America, if we should be something we should be worried about, because it's not always good for us when they're in charge.
Yeah, go for it, Aron. This is up your alley right here. Can't hear Aron right now. Looks like we might be having some technical difficulties.
Am I okay now?
There we go. Now I can hear you.
Somehow it was muted. All right. So where were we? What was the question? I'm sorry.
I think Matthew was just talking about the concern of the rise of evangelicalism.
Yeah, we talked about this extensely, like with the and his book on what was it? I can't remember the name, the title of that thing, but it's the Christian nationalists taking over the government to replace that with theocracy. Is of huge concern, and how they're overriding the judiciary and everything, and how they, as we talked about before the show, how there are a number of people that say that they actually want a king, because they believe in this whole, they don't believe in the people.
Yeah, and Matthew was wondering too, like specifically about the persecution of atheists, like as a minority, like how realistic is that?
Well, I don't feel persecuted, even though we can be killed in, I think, 7 countries around the world, and I've been to a couple of them. Where I realize that, okay, if I walk out of the airport, that would be it for me, and that's a bit of a concern. But I don't feel like I'm oppressed, even though literally I guess I am. We somehow, if we tell the truth to a child, we're treated as if we're doing something terrible to that child. But if we were a religious person, we can tell all of our lies to that child, and we would be praised because those were lies we believed in. So I guess in that respect, then I'm being oppressed. But I just don't. I guess I just don't think of it that way, because the Christians are always bragging about how persecuted they think they are. People in my own family have said that we are persecuted when we're not allowed to impose our religious restrictions on other people. Mm. So they're literally saying that they're being persecuted by not being able to persecute other people. And as an atheist, I'm not trying to persecute anybody. They want to do the gaslighting thing, where they take control of the narrative and then change all the education and everything to literally lie to children, even when they know that that's what they're doing. And I'm just enforcing everybody's freedom to believe whatever they believe, for whatever reason they believe it. But when we're teaching in the classroom, we're gonna teach facts, not deliberate propaganda.
Okay. So basically so I agree with you there, I don't think that we're being persecuted at the moment. I guess what I'm more getting to is like a small example, like when Matt Dillahunty was debating Sci 10, and someone asked him how he felt about democracy. He goes, "No, I want Christian theocracy in this country." And I just feel that with the rise, we have more and more secular people as the time goes on and we're becoming more and more of a secular nation, I feel that maybe those groups that, as you said, do feel like to take that they're persecuted all the time and feel marginalized, that eventually they're going to feel backed into a corner and then act in a way that's not, that might be violent. That's more, I guess, where my concern is.
Yeah, I don't see us becoming more of a secular country. We are definitely less, than we were. So court decisions like Turcaso versus Watkins in 1961, would that have gone the same way if that court case hadn't been tried until this year?
You know what? I was about to disagree with you, Aron, but then I realized, there's a distinction here that you're making, I think, because, statistically we can look at people who believe in Christianity less as a nation, but that's not to say that the people in power, the people in our government, are necessarily believing any less. And that is definitely true. Just based on look at lots of Supreme Court decisions in the past couple of years. Yeah.
Sure. When you look at the past couple of years, they're a lot different than the
decade. For sure. This is an interesting question, Matthew, because there's definitely calls to violence in these Christian communities. I mean, you've already seen it happen to like LGBT folks and stuff. I don't know if it's ever really happened.
I'm on tons of discussion boards where they go, when you're in the deep, dark places of Facebook arguing with people, you'll start to see some of the real interesting people come out of the woodworks, and you're just like, oh my God, this is a person that I might meet like on the street.
Yeah. I will say that if it does happen, if more violence does happen, it will be from a minority perspective. I think about what happened with Charlottesville, and you look at some of these rallies that were happening by these alt-right folks. The alt-right rallies are always smaller than the counter protests and stuff. The counter protests are always bigger, and somehow that gives me hope. Somehow that gives me, seeing the Black Lives Matter protests here in Austin. Oh my goodness. So many people out there on the streets. And again,
it's not even national. Seeing the Black Lives Matter protests across Europe and Asia and Australia, that was moving.
Yeah. And so like for every call to violence, there are like so many people who fight against that. I want to say that they exist in larger numbers than that smaller vocal minority. Now, that's not to say that the violence is any less dangerous, right? A small number of people can do a lot of terrible things.
Exactly.
So that might be true. That might happen. But I don't know. I can't make any predictions anymore about politics in this country. I don't know if anybody can with any real certainty. We're kind of living in the. I feel like it's like it's purgatory. It's political purgatory right now. I don't know. But it's always been that way, really.
I don't think anybody predicted 2020.
Yeah.
It was just
no.
Yeah.
Beyond knowing what number to follow.
Where did we get this one going?
I don't know. If something happens, Matthew, you know what I think is more likely? I think it's more of these like Boogaloo boys, the ones who want to start like this Civil War stuff over, these kind of race.
And also like I've been reading a lot about dominionism in Texas as well, and like how it's kind of on the right, or there's a lot of people who believe in it out of that era with wanting to put the president as a religious king and all this other stuff. And you're like, whoa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but sometimes these things do happen in trends. Like if you look at the 90s and you look at Ruby Ridge and Waco, like the militia movement stuff, that had momentum for a bit. And then like, when was the last time we had something like Waco happen? I mean, not super recently, not that dramatically.
There was the Freeman, but that was... Oh gosh, how long ago was that? Almost 20 years, or roughly 20 years at least. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's been a while. These things could come and go. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be that way forever. So maybe we're living in a trend. I don't know.
Yeah. I'd like to see this burn out. I think it was important that it happened. I mean, because I hate to admit this, I really do, but I was one of those oblivious white people who actually thought for a hot minute that we gotten over racism when we elected Obama. And I never would have realized what a huge problem it was until we elected Obama. And I'm like, holy crap. What's wrong with the planet I'm living on and the nation of people I belong to?
As someone married to a black woman, I can completely understand that, where you think like, no, we're good. Like, we've been doing great. And then my wife's like, no, it's not.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't remember if I told, we'll wrap it up after the story here, but I can't remember if I told the story before. I went on a Tinder dates, when I was in college, and I went on a couple of dates with this girl when I was in San Antonio, and she was black. And I swear to God, I got more looks when I went out to places with her than any other person, just because and you could tell what it was. It was really obvious to people that a white guy dated a black girl, that's just a thing that people aren't used to seeing, especially in Texas. And I don't know, like it's shocking to people sometimes.
It shouldn't be.
When I was in high school, I dated a Japanese girl, I dated a black girl, I dated a Mexican girl. I mean, and for me, it was just pretty as pretty. I'll take a variety. Is she pretty? That was the prejudice that I had.
Yeah. I was going to write actually on the Truth Wanted Facebook group, because I've been wanting to post some more stuff. I have a lot of thoughts about interracial marriage and anti-miscegenation laws, specifically in ties to Christianity, because if you look at the statistics on any policy issue ever, it's almost crazy to see how much people have changed on interracial marriage. Like over 90% of this country was not okay with interracial marriage. We're now way lower, but that's coming from like the 1960s, and it's like, wow, hey, these are Christian folks. This is like as a Christian nation. And that's probably like a lot of Christians talk about how, oh yes, they're supposed to love everybody. And these racist ideas, they're not Christian. But how long have these racist ideas existed in Christianity and have been playing out systemically? I mean, decades.
I mean,
decades.
over the last
I was born
over the last decade, you've had commercials that have had interracial couples in it.
Yeah, and people freaked out. People freaked out over, what was it, the Cheerios commercial? Because it was a white woman with a black guy, and they took it off air. Like,
and the little girl in that ad was adorable.
Yeah, like people get, I don't know what it is. People get so wrapped up about other people's relationships that are none of their fucking business. So
I was born in
1960. A lot of ignorance and hate.
Yeah.
I was born in 1962, and the marriage that I have now would have been illegal then, because I can't remember the name of the court case. I remember one of the parties' name was Love.
Yeah, Brown v. Love, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm married to a woman who's half Vietnamese.
Brown.
So here give you just some depth on how creepy this all is. Being that she was half Vietnamese, she's only allowed to marry Vietnamese people according to that old law, because if you're half white and half Vietnamese, that makes you Vietnamese, because whatever you are that ain't white is whatever you are.
Right.
Yeah. There's no amount of white that takes over that one drop rule.
Yes.
That's kind of insidious too. And then I've encountered people who are not white, but consider themselves according to that one drop, who actually bragged that they adhere to that one drop rule. And I'm like, do you not even know what the history of that is?
Yeah, I don't know. We went on probably a different tangent than what you probably thought, Matthew. But thanks for calling in anyway. That was a good conversation.
Great conversation.
We got a lot to
appreciate it. I thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a great day.
Yeah, you have a great one too. Like I have a lot of thoughts about this. Like I said, I could really go on about just the psychology of it. I used to intern at Baylor University, and I got to see they have something called the Texas Collection there, and the Texas Collection is the largest archive of Texas artifacts in the world. So they got all kinds of stuff. And Aron, I wish I could show you some of the tracks that I had for people who were against that upcoming Supreme Court decision at the time of legalizing interracial marriage across all 50 states, because it wasn't legal across all the states, right? You had state laws just like you did with gay marriage, it was kind of thing. And these were published by Christian groups saying that interracial marriage was not Christian, right? And this was not just like obscure groups. These were like, some of these were like big mainstream Baptist churches that were making this argument. Okay. Like you cannot pretend to me that, we've always been about love and loving everybody and all these crazy ideas, that's just the minority. No, this used to be majority. Like this was the thing. And people didn't change because their religion changed.
I used to say that religion retarded, impeded, or reversed progress in every application that it has ever touched. Not any one particular religion, all of them have had this type of effect.
Yeah, we changed because our values as a country changed, which is a secular phenomenon. It was not a religious phenomenon, and I get it. There
people blame Darwin for racism, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm looking at this document that was printed on the year that Darwin was born. Is this document is describing black people as another species, as an animal species for livestock sales.
Yeah,
and this is in America. And this is the year Darwin's born, but Darwin is being blamed for racism. Sorry, this document damn sure didn't have anything to do with fucking Darwin.
It's crazy. And I was just going to make the point. Yes, I get it. There's tons of Christian groups that fight against this stuff and have been fighting against this stuff for decades. And I get that's always been a thing, but they exist in the same culture as all these other Christians. And for the vast majority of history, okay, those other Christians, they were the ones in charge, and they were the ones setting the standards and cultural practices for society. That's
one thing I do want to mention, because it reminds me. I mean, there was a statue of Columbus that just was taken down today. How slow are we at learning things? So we named cities and everything after Columbus. We made a holiday after Columbus. Columbus was arrested by his own men on his third trip out here and sent back to Spain in chains. What a horrible prick he was. Yet we're erecting statues and holidays to this asshole?
Yeah, that's a whole other thing too.
Centuries went by that we knew that the people who live on this continent were not from India.
Yeah, it's bad. All right, I could deep dive with you on Columbus, but I want to get to one more call here before we wrap up tonight's show, if that's okay with you. I want to talk to Mr. Batman, who is calling in from Scottsburg, Indiana. Mr. Batman, you're on the show. What's going on?
Good evening, gentlemen. I just wanted to ask a very basic science question, because that's what I do. I like science. And I wanted to know, why do natural laws, and Mr. Ra and I have had a conversation before, why do natural laws exist, and why do they not change over time?
Because in order for something to exist, it has to have properties. As I explained it to you before, but you developed a learning disability and were never able to perceive this. If something is going to exist, then it has to have properties in order to exist, and those properties cannot necessarily be fluid. Therefore, these are the properties.
In order for it to have properties, would that have to exist in the real world in real time? Because, see, here's the problem with your properties argument. In order for you to identify...
Hang on. I'm Mr. Batman. I'm sorry. I'm going to mute you for a second. Did you just try to use my platform to start an argument with someone that
Mr. Batman had an argument with me online once recently, wherein I had to correct him over and over and over again that I did not believe that everything came from nothing. He is not smart enough on this issue to know how to correct his script. So he kept arguing the same point, and I had to keep correcting him until finally I said, look, you don't get this. You're arguing a straw man position that I do not hold. I'm not going to defend a position that I don't hold. And since you can't modify your argument to address the position I do hold, then we're done. And so what did he do? He declared victory and made a video where he declared that he'd pwned me or some such shit because he was too fucking stupid to understand what my position actually is.
Okay. Well, that's cool. I'm going to go ahead and end this call then, because none of this has anything to do with me. And
he's trying to pull himself up by my bootlaces.
Yeah, that's interesting. Anybody who has beef with some of my guests should probably take that outside my program, because I don't appreciate you trying to do that on here just to talk to him. That's not cool. So I guess that's it then. That's the end of this episode of Truth Wanted. Aron, thanks again for coming on to the show. If people want to find you, where should they go?
I've been doing activism for the last half a dozen years full time, and I need all the help I can get. So if you take a look at Patreon /Aron Ra, ARONRA, and I've been trying to be the hardest working atheist activist there is, but in the last year and a half, I've been struggling a little bit harder because I'm chasing an anthropology degree from the School of Human Evolution and Social Change at Arizona State University's Institute of Human Origins. And so that has taken an awful lot more of my time than I could even spare. So it's meant that it's even harder. My time is totally consumed. Other people out there have some time to like do like movie nights and video games and that sort of thing, but that doesn't exist for me. This is about all the time that I could afford to lapse. And then as soon as I'm off of this, I'm diving back into homework.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on this show. Tonight was something. That was something. This is Truth Wanted, folks. Again, we do this live every week. I'm about to jump into Discord. Like Aron says, he's too busy, but I will be able to talk to you guys and the Discord after shows. So please check out that Discord link if you want to come talk to me. But if you are not listening live and you want to know where to find me, again, I'm Objectively Dan. You can follow me on Twitter with that handle. You can like and subscribe to this channel, which is Truth Wanted, or you might be listening to this on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Another thing you can do is email me. You can email me. It's truth@atheist-community.org. And there's a Facebook group that I'm posting more on as well for Truth Wanted. So check that out. We also have a Patreon and a merch store, which is cool. If you want to get an Objectively Dan body pillow, we don't have those yet, but maybe we could make that. If somebody wants that, let me know. And if there's enough demand, we'll put it in the store. But right now you can just get shirts and hoodies and stuff with the logo. And if you want to become a member on YouTube, you can do that as well. You can just start as little as 99 cents, I believe, and you get some cool emojis for that. Obviously I thank you for that if you do. Last, but certainly not least, I got to thank the wonderful, awesome, hardworking crew that helps make this production happen every single week. These guys are crazy for wanting to work with me, of all people, but also just fantastic human beings. I appreciate them a lot. Thank you so much, guys. Aron, before we go, what's your favorite animal?
Raccoon.
Raccoon, why?
Raccoons are a procyanid. They are the undifferentiated dog bears, pre-weasels. They are what the caniformia looked like, what all caniforms looked like once upon a time. And
wow,
the interesting thing about that is that they're a sort of living fossil.
Oh my God.
And genetically, they don't mutate. That they have such a slow mutation rate. I actually brought this up with a geneticist at one point who was giving a presentation. I was like, why don't we have different variety? I mean, we've got the Cotamundi in South America, but otherwise, raccoons that you see in North America are the same as the raccoons you see in Asia. Why are they exactly the same over this huge dispersal? And he said that they've noted that there's terribly slow mutation rate in raccoons. I'm like, well, that's just perfect, isn't it? Here you've got the perfect animal that if there's going to be something outside of simians that would be the follow-up to our species, you would have something that has functional hands that can walk around bipedally and like carry things in their hands. They just need to develop a larger brain, right? But they can't because there's no mutation rate for these guys. The mutation rate is so slow, they effectively don't evolve. They've had been like 10 or 20 million years exactly in the same form.
Well, my show's called Truth Wanted. I wanted the truth, and boy, did I get it. And folks, you should also remember to always keep wanting the truth. And I'll see you next time.
We are sorry, but the show has ended. Goodbye.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?